Welcome to our audio commentary coverage. This broadcast is not an official product of this competition.
It's under Isak deal that eventually saw him go to Liverpool. Vissa, Nick Voltomane, eventually landing here at Newcastle. Voltomane is on the bench for Newcastle tonight. The Newcastle substitutes in full: Dan Burn, Anthony Elanga, Alex Murphy, Stephen Neve, Wilson Asula, Aaron Ramsdale, Jacob Ramsey, Luke Shahir and Voltomade. As for Brentford, Collins, Donovan, Furo, Hickey, Damsgaard, Nelson, Pinnock, Valdemarsson and Yarmolenko. And before we do get underway, we can just dive into those results from earlier today. Manchester United 2, Tottenham 0. Goals either side of the break from Brian and Burmo and Bruno Fernandes. Tottenham, of course, having to play over an hour with 10 men after Christian Romero was sent off. Bournemouth 1, Aston Villa 1. Arsenal stretching their lead at the top of the table with a 3-0 victory over Sunderland. West Ham boosting their survival chances 2-0 away at Burnley. A late goal at Craven Cottage means that Everton secured 3 points away at Fulham. And a Cole Palmer hat-trick secured a 3-1 win for Chelsea at Wolverhampton Wanderers. But as Brentford get us off and running here, we are underway at St James's in a match that could have real implications for the European race. The Brentford win tonight, they do have the potential to go as high as 6th and above Liverpool. On a slot side, of course, in action against Manchester City tomorrow as they look to keep their own European challenge on track. Here is Christophe Ayer, back for Quivin Kelleher. Interesting call from Keith Andrews to keep his captain Collins on the bench. He's been the regular at the heart of that defence alongside generally Vandenberg, but the experience of Christophe Ayer has been leaned on for the last few weeks, and it's a decision that Keith Andrews is happy with. Here he is once more. Squared across to Michael Kayode, just forward from right back. Brentford continue to win plenty of admirers around the Premier League. 3 wins in their last 5 in top flight action. That's what's powering their rise up the table. And there's a chance here, ball over the top. And Keane Lewis-Potter's gone down. He's claiming that he was caught from behind by Kieran Trippier. And that was just a big up and under. The Newcastle back line were almost caught out. There was certainly a hand across by Trippier on Lewis Potter, but play on, says the referee Andy Madley. Here is Trippier storming forward for Newcastle. Work to Harvey Barnes on the edge of the penalty area. He's got options over on that far left-hand side. Lewis Hall now forward from left back, and Barnes will drive one. Just flashes beyond Quivin Kelleher's post. Action at both ends with just 3 minutes gone here. Lovely shape on that effort from Harvey Barnes. Just not quite enough to swerve inside Kelleher's post, and we are being shown a replay of that opportunity at the opposite end of the field, and Kieran Trippier does have a hold of Keane Lewis-Potter's shirt. With Thiago causing problems initially for Thiago and Botman. And from my perspective, Lewis Potter does go down easily. There is contact, he is pulled. He certainly feels the hand of Trippier on him. And Andy Madley's first call of the game, it's a big one. And he's opted for caution there. And left his 4th official, Rob Jones, to explain that one to Keith Andrews. Clearance away down that left channel for Brentford. Thiago will give chase and buffeted Kieran Trippier off the side of the field there. Foul against the Brentford striker. See, so many analysts and commentators speculated over the summer how Brentford would cope after Burmo headed to Manchester United and Vissa ended up here at Newcastle. And the goals of Igor Thiago have effectively rendered much of that obsolete. Grealish being the main man, having played a bit of a rotating role in the 24-25 campaign. He didn't actually score a Premier League goal at all last season, so it makes his numbers so far here even more impressive. Brentford have won themselves a throw-in over on that far right-hand side, 30 yards from the Newcastle goal. It's Coyote causing problems for Barnes. And Lewis Hall was claiming that the final touch came off Coyote, as Hall came across there to back up Barnes. They're coming together between the two fullbacks, and the throw-in decision has gone in favour of Brentford. In fact, the referee has changed his mind and gone for a free kick. He's claiming that Hall was excessive in his contact on Coyote. He's overruled the assistant's original decision and give Brentford an opportunity to cross this one into the penalty area. Vandenberg and Ayer both forward. They weren't planning to if it was just a throw-in, but they will now that ball is lofted in by Jensen. Headed back into the danger area by Ayer. Newcastle not quite able to get it away. Barnes will cushion it up towards the halfway line eventually. Now Coyote caught in possession there by Tonale, but just bounces favourably for him. Kelleher will go long again. Botman there gets across and barges Thiago to the floor. That'll be an interesting battle tonight. The physicality of Sven Botman up against Igor Thiago. Dan Burn replaced in the starting lineup this evening. He's an individual that wouldn't shy away from that type of challenge either. Howe clearly feeling that his team needed a bit of freshening up after a difficult week. Didn't reach the standards that he expects away at Liverpool last weekend, and then it was always seemingly an uphill task against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup. Here come Brentford again, trying to fashion an opportunity just outside Newcastle's penalty area. Keane Lewis Potter just tried to tow that in the direction of Rico Henry, but Trippier gets it away. Picked up again though by Brentford. They're appealing for handball here. No, says the referee. Henderson will hang one in. And Nick Pope gratefully gets his gloves on that one in behind Sven Botman. The Bees have been busy. Have to give plenty of credit to Keith Andrews for the tweaks and changes that he's made from Thomas Frank's system at Brentford. Nobody knew anything about Brentford as a Premier League force without Thomas Frank at the helm. Of course, he's the man who got them up and managed them right the way through, changing times over the summer, and now finds himself under pressure at Tottenham. Andrews, on the other hand, excelling after stepping up to the big job at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Here come Newcastle. Tonale just not quite able to gather that one in. And then Gimarai loses out. Hall does well just a step away from the press there by Dango Ouattara. And eventually he slaloms past a couple of challenges. He's caught there by Jordan Henderson. Newcastle will have themselves a free kick this time round. Smack bang on the edge of Brentford's penalty. Henderson just leaves the leg dangling, and Lewis Hall happy to go over. Really engaging start here. It's the first bit of action for Queevy and Kelleher to organise his wall here. Left of centre, perfect for a right footer. Barnes, Trippier stood over it. Sandro Tonali interested as well. Kelleher wanting to ensure that he's got a clear sight of the ball. Trippier, if he is chosen to take this, will fancy his chances of whipping it on target. Willock just steps away, so it's Tonali and Trippier. Trippier might just allow the Italian to have a go here, and he does. Flashes it over the top of Kelleher's crossbar. After a fairly lengthy build-up, it was a bit of a waste in the end. Kieran Trippier might fancy his chances from the next one. So 10 minutes gone. If you are just a little later joining us this evening, it has been a busy day in the Premier League. We're with you all the way here tonight on Flashcore. Newcastle 0, Brentford 0 as it stands. We also have a busy day tomorrow if you're fancying a Super Sunday. Brighton versus Crystal Palace, a derby with a fair bit of crunch to it at 2 p.m. And then the big one at Anfield, Liverpool against Manchester City, 4:30. Manchester City and Liverpool, of course, both having to watch on at the moment as Arsenal stretch further and further away at the top of the rankings. 9 points after that win over Sunderland earlier today. Rico Henry there just forced back into his own half. Brentford left back under pressure from Jacob Murphy. Throw in favour of Brentford. Henry over the halfway line. Thiago just tries to nod that on in the direction of Keane Lewis-Potter, but can't quite take it down. Yanelt takes over on the halfway line, chased in field by Joan Vissa. Then Agier fires that one into the channel. Botman will see it back for Pope in front of Dango Ouattara. Hall wins that tussle with Kyoto. Harvey Barnes is tracked back by the Brentford defender. Been an early skirmish between those two, Hall and Kyoto. Now Willock doesn't quite fancy his chances of a foot race against Michael Kyoto there. Checks in field here for Sandro Tonali. Midway inside Brentford's half of the field. Here's the captain, Bruno Gimarai. Trippier forward from right back. Murphy just steps in field, 25 yards from the Brentford goal. Reverse fixture in November did take a little while to get going. Harvey Barnes with the opener after 27 minutes, and then all three of Brentford's goals after the second half. Sharda and then 2 from Thiago. Tonali wins himself a free kick just right of centre, midway into Brentford territory. Newcastle will take this opportunity to wheel the big guns forward. Trippier will stand alone over this one. Floated in towards the far post and rather awkwardly knocked behind for a corner by Dango Ouattara. Newcastle's first of the game. First at either end, in fact, as Sandro Tonali heads over to the far side to take this one. Thiago and Botman both stay forward. Tonali hangs it in on top of Kelleher. Good punch there from the Irishman, but Murphy will drive it back in, and it's flicked past the post by Harvey Barnes. Tries to catch Kelleher out there. Good, powerful hand away by Kelleher initially. Murphy just fizzes it back into that 6-yard box. Barnes trying to flick it on target through his own legs. I don't think Kelleher would have been able to react in time if that had been on target. Barnes' second effort of the night, yet to test Kelleher though. Here come Brentford on the charge down the right hand side. Ouattara's done really well. Cross then hung into the back post, nodded back towards Thiago. Tonali and Barnes almost got in each other's way there. Danger is eventually hacked away, and Van der Berg will see it home for Quivin Kelleher. So no saves for Pope or Kelleher. 15 minutes gone. Barnes with a little sighter early on, and then a cheeky little flicked effort past the post. Yet to see too much from Brentford as an attacking force. Ball over from the right hand side. Trippier does well to get a flick on that in front of Keane Lewis Potter. It was even better to chase him down and win the second ball. Keep Newcastle in possession, but Jacob Murphy's giving it away here. Chance for Jensen. Curled straight at Nick Pope. And that was poor from Jacob Murphy. Trippier had done the hard part for him, and then just a blindsided pass. He tries to play it across. Newcastle back four in the direction of Botman. Jensen didn't really realise how much time he had and doesn't get the connection. Easy pickings for Nick Pope. Van der Berg just reads that ball forward up to João Vissa. Trippier restarts for Newcastle. There's a foul then halfway. Bruno Gimarai bundled over by Lewis Potter. Concerning times overall for Eddie Howe. Newcastle, as we mentioned, have slipped down into the bottom half. Start tonight in 12th position. Just one win in the last 8 in all competitions. That came here at home to PSV Eindhoven in the penultimate game of the league phase in the Champions League. But they've failed to win in the last 3 in the Premier League, and that's the real concern as Howe grows ever more worried about his Champions League qualification chances. Finished in the top 5 in 2 of the last seasons. He was hoping to make it 3 out of 4. Unless they win the Champions League this season, it's going to take something pretty special in the final couple of months of this campaign to do that for 26-27. Here's Vissa. Just overhits that ball for Jacob Murphy. It would have been pretty feasible if I was to say at the start of the season that come February the roles would be reversed. Brentford in 12th and Newcastle in 8th. That is not the case. Premier League football, it's always good for a bit of a surprise. Botman does well there just to take that long ball from Henry down on his chest and fizz it back for Nick Pope. Now Gimarai on the half turn inside the centre circle. Jordan Henderson puts the pressure on, and Matthias Jensen catches Gimarai from behind. Almost played his way into a spot bother there. The Brazil international. Henderson had pressed him really well. Turned into the challenge from Jensen. Gets the decision from Andy Madley. Pope with another clearance. Straight out of play this time. Michael Coyote and Dango Ouattara happy to watch that for a Brentford throw. Here comes Coyote again. Lovely change of pace down that right hand side. Can he feed it across? Keane Lewis-Potter there. Well shackled by Kieran Trippier. Flung himself at it, the Brentford wide man. Used every bit of his experience there. Kieran Trippier just stepped across at the right moment. That's the threat that Michael Coyote has, though. Ouattara this time from the right. Pings it in towards Lewis-Potter. Headed away by Trippier. Coyote caught by Willock. Free kick for Brentford, just over the halfway line for their right back. Here's Yanelt. Again, Coyote linking with Dango Ouattara. Henderson just steps across there. He's on the Brentford right hand side. Ajer rolls it over the halfway line for Van der Berg. Henry now. Still just one attempt on target from either side. Jensen kept out by Pope. Barnes with two efforts. Wayward on Queeving Kelleher's goal. It's a slow burner we expected, and it's a slow burner that we're getting. Gimarai punches the turf there after fouling Keane Lewis-Potter. He didn't think that was a foul. Brentford's quickly taken free kick up towards Igor Jesus. Is cut out though. Newcastle can reset here. Pope again pumps that long. I mentioned that goal spree of Igor Thiago, 16 in the Premier League so far. Brentford have twice had a player hit 20 in the top flight, following their rise in 2021. Ivan Toney and Mbeumo both got that figure. Thiago could match or better it in the weeks to come. Here come Newcastle away down the left hand side. Willock's done well just to wriggle clear there and win himself a corner as well. Quarter of the game gone. 23 minutes on the clock. Newcastle's second corner. Again over on that far left hand side. Bruno Gimarai will step across to take the captain in towards the near post. And is prodded behind by Igor Thiago, beg your pardon. Igor Jesus leading the Nottingham Forest attack, not the Brentford one. My apologies. Gimarai will reload once more for Newcastle. Botman and Thiago both prepared to make their runs from the far post. He's back in on top of Kelleher, and it's deflected home. And Newcastle have the lead through Sven Botman. And the inquest will begin. Queeving Kelleher goes to make a move towards the corner. And it's that hesitation that cost Brentford Botman's first Premier League goal since 2024. And it's just a routine corner straight into the danger area. Thiago, Botman both on the move right before Gimarai takes this. He just levers away from Rico Henry. There's an absolute mass of bodies in there. No chance really for Kelleher. But as the old adage goes, if you're going to come, you've got to claim that. Your Harvey Barnes and Visser both in front of him. But as it comes over there, Kelleher just not able to react in time. Botman gets the contact. And Newcastle are in front. A game of very, very few chances so far. The first real opening. And Botman has headed Newcastle in front. What do Brentford have in response? Here's Michael Coyote. Just checks in field on the halfway line. Tries to roll that in for Jensen. Nice little layoff for Thiago. Ouattara. Able to maintain possession though. Matthias Jensen just runs straight into Lewis Hall. And his zip ball forward is not gathered in by Joe Willock, so it will be a Brentford throw-in for Coyote back where that move started. Quickly taken on towards Ouattara. The cross was deflected there. Nick Pope forced to take evasive action and just punch it away. Brentford not hanging around here. Ouattara there just tries to steer that across the edge of the 6-yard box, takes a nick off Botman, and then Pope not taking any chances. Gets a big hand on that one to steer it away for a Brentford throw-in. Coyote will come across from right to left to take Yanelt. Now Jensen on the corner of Newcastle's penalty area. Just rockets that high over Pope's bar. Wayward that from the Brentford captain. He's had one on target and now one off target. Realistically, that's the only threat that Brentford have carried so far. Yeah, wins that aerial battle with Visser inside the centre circle. Tonale gets a foot in on Keane Lewis Potter. Throw in for Brentford. Coyote will push forward again over on that far right hand side. It's turned over quickly though by Newcastle. Chance for Joe Willock to stretch his legs over on the far left hand side. Yanelt goes with him. Conceded a throw in there. Brentford are not happy because Ouattara had gone down from the original throw-in. As if his foot was trodden on there as Newcastle tried to build forward, but he's back on his feet now. There's Trippier. Switch from right to left. Bit of space for Harvey Barnes to try and get a run at Coyote. Ouattara will dip in there and double up. Laid off though, Lewis Hall to the byline. Can he feed it across? Yes he can. And Newcastle, just can't turn it home. And it's the former Brentford man, Johan Visser, head in his hands. Lewis Hall here like a train through 3 Brentford players, just puts it back across the face of goal. Gimarai has a swing at it, then Johan Visser. And it's the recovering Sepp van der Berg who just gets in there head of Visser to poke it behind for a corner. Kelleher with a high five for his 2 centre-backs there. And Newcastle are starting to ramp things up. Corner from Trippier, tries to find Tonale on the edge of the box. His volley is blocked behind, and that will be another corner for Newcastle. Bruno Gimarai will again go over to the far side to take. Brentford just looking to dig in here. Need to get through this wave of pressure. Keith Andrews' team. There's Gimarai again. That's a brilliant corner. Gets so much pace on that as yet. Heads it back over his own crossbar. And he'll go exactly in the same place again, Bruno Gimarai. He's got very unusual technique, the Brazil international. Just gets very low, right on top of the ball, and whips it in with so much pace, such an acute angle on that front post, and Kelleher again needing his defenders to deal with it. Gimarai reloads, hangs it in once more. Kelleher with the punch, and Tonali with the volley. Bounces over the top of Kelleher's bar this time. Half an hour gone, Newcastle are rapping on Quivian Kelleher's door. A goal from Botman. And a real close call from a combination of Gimarai and Visser. Means the Bees are only still just one goal down here. Just taking a peek at what that does to the live rankings. Brentford stay as they are in 8th. Newcastle up to 9th. Level on points and level on goal difference. 36 points for both sides. Brentford just fractionally ahead though. They've not managed to find a way to really make an impact on this game so far. It's been scrappy and tetchy, but the moments of real attacking impact have belonged to Newcastle. Gimarai tries to ping one into the box for Joe Willock. Kelleher will get there. Gimarai again, lovely first time ball up to the edge of Brentford's box. Hall is muscled out of it though as Botman steps forward in front of Thiago. It's a sloppy ball backwards though from Bruno Gimarai. Malik Thiago will eventually just roll it back for his goalkeeper Nick Pope. Rico Henry far too keen there against Jacob Murphy. He comes charging over the halfway line through the back of the Newcastle man. Free kick for Newcastle in their right back spot. Kieran Trippier rolls it infield for Tonali. Now Thiago. Jensen tries to put the squeeze on, but he manages to get it off in time. Trippier, Murphy. Tonali now slaloming away there from Matthias Jensen, but the ball forward was to no one from the Italian, and Brentford will claim the throw. Henry here, right on the halfway line in front of his manager. Lack of options for him here, but eventually manages to feed it forward in the direction of Igor Thiago, but it's nodded away by Botman. Now Visser over the halfway line, but he slips under pressure there as Henderson was chasing after him. And Thiago again for the second time in a row not able to gather in a ball up to him on the halfway line. Hand of apology there towards Aguirre and Van der Berg. Here he is this time. Does well to shield in front of Botman. Jensen will curl that over to the far right hand side. Keane Lewis Potter switching flanks momentarily here. Trying to get a run on Lewis Hall, but he needs support. Kayode will provide it. That is a little change from Brentford in the last moment or two. Lewis Potter to the right, Ouattara to the left. Keith Andrews just trying to freshen things up before half time. Newcastle back in shape though now. Johan Visser leads the press. Van der Berg to Jensen over the halfway line. Yanelt. The black and white stripes of Newcastle though. Pressing with real cohesion here, and eventually Van der Berg has to go back for Kelleher. Long up towards Igor Thiago. That's a good win from Malik Thiago. expecting much change from the two Newcastle defenders, Thiago. Botman and Thiago both tall, very, very comfortable in the air as well. Tangles this time with Botman and loses out once more. Headed forward by Henderson. Botman beats Thiago to it for the second time. It's given away in the centre circle, this time by Barnes. Jensen back to Henry and back to Kelleher. Here comes Jordan Henderson. Lovely little fleet of foot from him there. He's away from a couple of challenges here. It's on to Christophe Ajer. He's got room to burst forward. The cross into the box is deflected behind for a corner. And as Henderson let that run for Christophe Ajer, there was just an open space for the defender to charge forward here. The long legs not able to be caught by Newcastle on the cover. Feeds it into Lewis Potter. And then Hall sliding in. Turns it behind for a first corner of the game for Brentford. Yanelt will step across to take this one. A chance for Vanderberg to come forward. Ayer has stayed forward after that slaloming run. Not a great delivery from Yanelt. Cleared back to him by Bruno Gimarai. Just tried to trick his way past the Brazilian, but loose ball is smashed downfield by Sven Botman. Kelleher almost caught out of position there. Michael Chiodi was the last man back in front of his keeper. Works out eventually as Newcastle was short in numbers on the press. Here's Ouattara with space down the left hand side. Hangs it into the penalty area and Brentford have their equaliser. They've been on the back foot for huge parts of this first half. But as Yanelt just peels away at the far stick. And it's a perfect ball in from Dango Ouattara. And a first Premier League goal of the campaign for Brentford's German international. And Ouattara here gets himself 1v1 with Kieran Trippier. And that is a brilliant cross into the box. Perfectly weighted in between the two Newcastle centre halves. And Yanelt, who just drifted in field after that pretty poor corner from him, just waits for his opportunity here. Hangs himself in behind Botman and nods it back across Nis Pope. And Brentford, 37 minutes on the clock, a back level here at St James's. Keith Andrews embracing his coaching staff there. And Dango Ouattara will take almost as much plaudits for that as Yanelt. We've got ourselves a game on again. Cracking ball from Dango Ouattara, real old school wing play. Isolate the fullback, get a bit of space, and then a delicious ball in. Yanelt showing her striker's instinct there with Thiago trying to battle and get across. Malik Thiago waits for it to drop behind Botman. Drags his team level. In the meantime, Newcastle straight on the front foot from the restart, and a looping cross into the box, which Quivin Kelleher claims didn't go out of play, has been awarded as a corner. Tonale over on that left hand side this time. Kelleher was being blocked in again. Tonale's delivery not as pinpoint accurate as Gimarai. Drop behind for a goal kick for Brentford. Two unexpected scorers. First league goals of the campaign for Botman and Yanelt. Sometimes in matches like this that haven't really sparked into life for the attacking players. Thiago, Wissa, Barnes. be a bit more of a straightforward route that can yield a match-impacting moment. Here's Lewis Potter battling away through the middle of the Newcastle half, and Tonale, and it's a very ill-advised move from the Italy international, just puts his arm on the back of King Lewis Potter, who's happy to go down again. Real scrappy little character, King Lewis Potter, but he's clever in those types of situations. If he gets his body in front, he will take a tumble. He's won a free kick here, smack bang in shooting range for himself. 25 yards from Nick Pope's goal, just slightly off to the left. There'll be a Brentford committee meeting over this one. Henderson, Ouattara, Jensen and Lewis Potter. Lewis Potter, you'd imagine, is the favourite to go for this one. Henderson is just in front. Lewis Potter steps up, straight into the wall. It falls straight back to Yanelt. Tries to float that one in towards Christophe Ajaya. Headed into the arms of Nick Pope. And a rather wild ball across the Newcastle back line from Hall to Trippier. He's gathered in eventually by the England international. Here's Bruno Gimarai over the halfway line for Joe Willock. Squeezed backwards though by Jordan Henderson. The balance of the game, Keith Andrews will be the more positive of the two managers. Newcastle have created more. Possession stats are pretty close, 52 to 48 in Brentford's favour, but in terms of the XG, Newcastle bang on 1, Brentford 0.3. I anticipate more of the same after the restart. It's been a very, very watchable game. Two teams with plenty to play for in the final few months of the season. Newcastle probably not able to fight themselves back into Champions League contention, but we do have the Europa League, the Conference League. We've also got the FA Cup in a couple of weeks' time against Aston Villa. And of course the Champions League, when the last 16 proper gets underway at the end of February. Here come Brentford. Final burst forward in this first half. Lovely change of feet there from Dango Ouattara. Rolls it across to Jensen. Big chance. Blocked. Brentford won a handball. And it's a penalty for Brentford. Ouattara's pace gets him in behind the Newcastle defence. Cuts it back for Matthias Jensen. As Jacob Murphy penalised here. And he can appeal all he wants. Matthias Jensen actually gets a bit of luck here because it's not the best contact from him. He just tries to dig it away from Jacob Murphy, but it does catch him on the arm. I don't think that's anything Newcastle can argue their way out of. Brilliant pace and awareness there from Dango Ouattara to create the chance. Newcastle just caught out of sync as he charged in behind. Cut back for Jensen, 6 yards out. Clearly catches Jacob Murphy on the arm. And Andy Madley here confirming to the two captains, Gimarai and Jensen, that this is being checked by John Brooks on VAR duty. So in the final minute of the first half, Brentford may have themselves an opportunity here. It certainly looks to me clean cut. Jacob Murphy just tried to pull his arm in. but it's away from his body. Catches him right in the middle of the forearm, and it was flying into the back of the net. Not the best effort from Jensen, as I mentioned. It's on target. Nick Pope rooted to the ground. They are taking the time over this, and Andy Madley just asking players from both teams to step away and allow consultation with John Brooks. Even Johan Visser against his former team is stepping in, but the decision stands. Jacob Murphy carded as we tick beyond the 45-minute mark here. Jordan Henderson, as we've seen quite a few times this season, stepping in and doing the ball-minding job. Igor Thiago is the regular penalty taker. Scored 5 out of 6 taken. Jensen has scored 1 from 1, but the assumption here is that it will be Igor Thiago to take this one. Nick Pope just trying to delay proceedings, and it will be Thiago. Henderson just hands it over, allowing Andy Madley to clear the penalty area. We'll stretch on into added time here. We've already gone 2 minutes over without an indication of exactly how much will be added on. Thiago places the ball. 4 minutes extra. It's a very, very good record from 12 yards, Igor Thiago. He steps up here, and a chance for his 17th Premier League goal of the season. Again, Andy Madley just having to step in here. And Nick Pope has come off his line complaining about how long it's taken to place the ball and get on with this. All part of the mind games. We are now all set. Andy Madley just with a final check on Nick Pope's positioning and Igor Thiago's readiness. Takes one step backwards. Deep breath. Thiago against Pope. Steps up, pauses and rolls it home. Goal number 17 of the Premier League season for Igor Thiago. And after what seemed like an eternity before he was able to step up and strike that one, he just waits for Pope to shift his weight to the left and then powers it into the opposite corner. And Brentford, from a goal behind, have got themselves right in front here at St James's Park. Real calm operator Igor Thiago, happy to wait and absorb that pressure, wait for Nick Pope to make the first move, and just steers it into the bottom corner and straight over to the sidelines. Big bear hug from Keith Andrews. He's ready to chase Erling Haaland down. Newcastle have allowed this game to slip away from them. Eddie Howe's got some serious work to do at half-time. Murphy's still not happy about that decision against him, but we've watched a few replays of it during the VAR consultation, and don't think it's a decision that could have gone in any other direction. To the final minute of the 4 added on. Kieran Trippier has been barged over on the halfway line here. It's Dango Ouattara who just telescoped out a leg to try and bring that down and just catch Trippier in the side of the face, but no intention involved, and just a free kick. Trippier will rake it forward up to the edge of Brentford's penalty area. Visser backing in, concedes the free kick. That's what Brentford will want. And we tick beyond the 4 minutes originally indicated. The Thiago penalty means we'll probably stretch on to 5 or maybe 6. Kelleher will drive this one long over the halfway line, up again towards Thiago. Thiago gets there first this time, and Thiago will have to go all the way back to his goalkeeper from the scraps of that one. Route 1 once more from Kelleher up to Thiago. He does win out this time against Kieran Trippier. Back on the halfway line for Yanelt. Rico Henry will help it down that channel for Thiago to chase. Come across and foul Malik Thiago. Let's return to haunt Newcastle again. Thiago. Third goal in 2 games against them this season. It's a worrying statistic from a Newcastle perspective, certainly. Pope with the clearance, goes long over the halfway line, and that is the half-time whistle here at St James's, as Newcastle find themselves behind at the break. Sven Botman's first Premier League goal in 2 years, getting the ball rolling for the Magpies. But Keith Andrews' visitors are firmly one of the most resilient teams in the Premier League this season. Vita Yanelt's first goal of the campaign to level things up, and then who else but Thiago from the penalty spot in added time at the end of the first half has got the bees buzzing, and the visitors in front here on Tyneside. Half time on Flash Score, it is Newcastle 1, Brentford 2. Newcastle back into a real battle here, and they need to sort themselves out if they want to force back into the top half of the table before the end of proceedings tonight. Decisive action taken at half-time by Eddie Howe. 2 changes with Anthony Elanga and Nick Voltemade both introduced for the home side, replacing Joe Willock and Jacob Murphy. No alterations from Keith Andrews, confident in what his team has done so far. So, as we get ourselves back underway, Newcastle's team: Nick Pope in goal, Trippier, Thiago, Botman and Hall in defence, Gimarai, Tonale and Elanga in midfield, with Voltemade, Visser and Barnes in attack. I anticipate that Visser and Voltemade will be a bit closer to each other than the 3-man front line of the first half, but we'll keep an eye on that for the moment. As for Brentford, Quivin Kelleher in goal, Coyote, Agier, Vandenberg and Henry in defence, Henderson, Yanelt and Jensen in midfield, with Ouattara, Thiago and Keane Lewis Potter in attack. Brentford have won themselves an early throw in here, pushed down this right hand side just in front of the Newcastle penalty area, and that means only one thing: Michael Coyote will slingshot this one right into the danger area, headed away by Malik Thiago and then helped downfield by Harvey Barnes. Elanga will give chase, beaten to it though by Rico Henry, hoisted back up towards the Newcastle penalty area, and Christophe Agier, who'd stayed forward, is reprimanded for a foul. Tonale on the turn here, press back towards his own penalty area by Jordan Henderson. Manages to squeeze a pass out though to Malik Thiago. And as we mentioned before, the half-time break, that's Thiago's 17th Premier League goal this season. Only Erling Haaland with 20 has scored more. But most importantly for Brentford, which we'll get to in just a second, as Harvey Barnes tries to slip a pass into Yoane Wissa inside the Brentford box, has to go the long way round, and eventually a little clip ball in for Gimarai. Bounces here for Elanga, then Aguirre heads away. Tonali will keep it going. The delayed offside flag does flash up against Anthony Elanga. It's sprayed just offside there as Gimarai tried to help that ball on towards the Sweden international. So Brentford up to 7th in the table. Trail Liverpool only on goal difference, 39 points. The same as the defending champions. And I'll repeat what I said in the first half. If you were to say that at the beginning of the campaign about a team that had lost its long-standing manager in Thomas Frank and its two most noteworthy players in Bryan Mbeumo and Yoane Wissa, that they'd be eyeball to eyeball with the defending champions, who they themselves, of course, are not at full power right now. Admirable work being done by Keith Andrews and his players as they look for a highest ever Premier League finish. Still got 40 minutes though to get through here. Lewis Potter does really well there, just gets across and shoulders into Lewis Hall. That's a permanent change made by Keith Andrews. Lewis Potter moved over to this right hand side with Ouattara over on the far left. And Rico Henry there, just shielding the ball in front of Anthony Elanga, and he's bundled to the floor. A free kick for the Brentford left back. And Brentford will do this in the second half. They'll try and stretch the game out as much as they can and turn it into a stop-start, scrappy affair. I mean that with the greatest of respect. If you look at their performance last week when he played for so long with 10 men after Kevin Schada's red card away at Aston Villa. He got the job done though. And it's a team built in Keith Andrews' gritty own image with real tactical nous, personality, and a clinical edge primarily shown by their man up top, Igor Thiago. If they were to stay on top in this game, it'd be a fourth win from 6 rather in the Premier League. Lost back-to-back games at the end of January, 2-0 away at Chelsea and then 2-0 at home to Nottingham Forest. But overall, the end of 2025 and the start of 2026 has been pretty positive. Wins over Everton and Sunderland, and then got past Sheffield United in the FA Cup as well. Here, Newcastle on the front foot now. Kieran Trippier attacking down the right-hand side, and he's claiming that cross in, catches Rico Henry on the arm. Now then, the Newcastle players were adamant that the decision that went against them at the end of the first half, Jacob Murphy handling Matthias Jensen's effort, are screaming at the referee here and saying, what about us? Now as we're looking at this replay, Trippier just tries to bend that cross around Rico Henry, and to me it looks more like shoulder than arm. The arm is tucked behind his back. He does make a move with his shoulder towards the ball, but I do not think that's clear-cut enough for a penalty shout. Newcastle will have to settle for a corner. Andy Madley has confirmed his decision, so no need for a VAR review. A set-piece opportunity though for Newcastle. Trippier will pause his protestations to go over and take this one. Botman now adding even extra height in there alongside Thiago and Botman. Delivery is a poor one though from Trippier easily swept away by Dango Ouattara. And Hall does well to win it back on the halfway line. Just pumps it into the danger area. King Lewis Potter clears away. Turnover is won by Newcastle on halfway. Gimarai can't quite get that to João Vissa. And then he gives away a foul there on Jordan Henderson. Gives Brentford the chance to reset inside the centre circle. Brentford moving swiftly forward. Henderson floats that one up for Igor Thiago, who will battle away with Thiago just outside Newcastle's penalty area. Can't quite get the pass off to Lewis Potter. Gimarai will intervene here. And needed an outlet there, Gimarai, and eventually Lewis Hall will hit the channel for Vissa to chase. Agier will go with him. A tough night for him against his old team, the DR Congo international. Of how deadly he was for Brentford last season alongside Mbeumo. Injuries have obviously played a bit of a part in his lack of regular action at Newcastle, but the statistics are pretty telling. 19 Premier League goals last season, just one so far for Newcastle. Here's Trippier again, space to step forward once more down the right hand side. Lovely spread out to him from Anthony Elanga. Elanga will go back for Trippier, first time in, and then Harvey Barnes climbing and not getting his header on target, just spins beyond Quivin Kelleher's post. Better from Newcastle though. Elanga did really well there just to follow his pass outwards. And Trippier, so consistent in those types of situations. He will sling crosses in and give players something to aim for. Barnes gets a good contact on that, but maybe lacking a bit of self-belief. He's not known for his aerial prowess, the former Leicester City man. Henry wins out against Elanga on the halfway line. He's chased every inch of the way there by Sandro Tonali. Won back by Tonali. Vissa can't get away from Christophe Ayer. That's a really big challenge from the Brentford centre-back on his former teammate. And Brentford can break away through the centre of the park here. Vitaly Yanelt's carried it a heck of a long way. King Lewis Potter down this right-hand side. Can he get a shot away? Blocked by Hall. And Newcastle were cut wide open there. That's the right option, picked by Vitaly Yanelt. Don't think Lewis Potter rather really backed himself as he stepped in on his left foot. The chance comes and goes very, very quickly. And Brentford are going to make their first change of the game. 57 minutes gone. It's Jordan Henderson's number who's up over on the far side. Applauds the travelling Brentford fans as he makes his way off. The Ukrainian international Ihor Yarmolyuk that will come on to replace him like for like, just to add some energy and some freshness into that Brentford midfield. Big hug from his manager there, Jordan Henderson. Solid game from him up to this point. Been a real source of balance and calmness in that Brighton engine room since he arrived. The torch is passed to Yarmolyuk though for the remainder of this game. Charge forward on that left hand side. Dango Ouattara gets the bounce of the ball in his favour. Can't find his way past Sven Botman though, who slides in to prevent the corner. Brentford will have to settle for a throw-in over by that corner flag down the left-hand side, as a rarely seen sight of a note being passed mid-game. Yarmolyuk was sent on with a little bit of instructions for Vitaly Yanelt. I wonder if Keith Andrews has included a joke in that, because Yanelt certainly saw the funny side of it. Let's see if that means any significant tactical alterations from Brentford. Ouattara again. He does win the corner this time. He's thrived on both wings tonight, the former Bournemouth man. The Bees will bring the big guns forward again. Thiago in there, Vandenberg, Ayer. Jensen to take over on the far left-hand side. Hoisted in towards the far post. Pope gets a punch. Just about manages to get it clear, but Brentford will win themselves a throw-in. Ouattara against Lewis Hall. Michael Kiyode will come across to get his hands on this one. Level with the corner of that Newcastle penalty area. Everybody has stayed in there from the corner. Kiyode, a long throw-in, can be almost like a corner. Pope will get his gloves on it this time though. Bowls it out down that right-hand side for Gimarai to chase. He hasn't got the pace on Keane Lewis Potter though. Kelleher will clear long once more. Thiago battling away with Malik Thiaw. Bounces for Nick Voltemade inside the centre circle. First real involvement from the German since being introduced at half-time. Got to get closer to Johan Visser. Those two changes from Howe. Voltemade and Elanga on clearly shows the host of confidence that they can force themselves back into this game. And Voltemade dropping deep is perhaps not what he imagined. Long ball pinged over to that far side. Trippier will scrap away with Jensen. He wins a throw-in right in front of the corner flag, Kieran Trippier. We tick beyond the hour mark here. No change in the scoreline. Still Newcastle 1, Brentford 2. And now Kieran Trippier will offer his Michael Kiyode impression. It's at a bit more of an acute angle though here. He does go short for Elanga. Lofted back in by Kieran Trippier, headed away by Christophe Ayer, helped forward by Yarmouk. Tonale will try and dink a little ball forward there for Trippier to give chase. Vandenberg gets across and it's smashed downfield by Brentford. More changes being readied on both benches. Keith Andrews and Eddie Howe in consultation with their respective coaching staffs, or respective coaching staff even. Sulet, Ramsey, the likely options you'd imagine for Newcastle, and depending on Andrews' intentions, it might be a couple of defensive moves. The captain, Nathan Collins, is one of those players on the bench alongside Ethan Pinnock. So it's the danger in this type of situation. You can't try and lock down too early, particularly in the Premier League, at home against a team like Newcastle with as much attacking quality as they do possess. Kiyode with the throw-in. And he gets halfway up his own half of the field, cut out by Lewis Hall, who tries to scoop it forward for Gimarai. Ouattara gets back there on the cover in front of Rico Henry, and they've done well to double up on Gimarai and Kieran Trippier. And Rico Henry's away down that left-hand side. Tonali's covered a hell of a lot of ground to get back to him. Squared for Jensen, blocked by Malik Thiaw. Flying run forward there from Rico Henry. He spotted the gap, vacated by Kieran Trippier. Jensen's pass was competently read though by Malik Thiaw. Here come Newcastle, down their left-hand side this time, as Lewis Hall lets Elanga go beyond him. Cut back from Voltemade is smashed away downfield. Botman wins it on the halfway line. This is better from Newcastle. Sandro Tonali over the halfway line. Just stops short though as Ouattara drops off, lets it run across for Kieran Trippier. Now Thiago, Botman, Hall. Barnes just trying to stretch Brentford across the edge of their penalty area, and you're in. Keen Lewis Potter. Cross was intended for a combination of Altomari and Vissa, but it's Queven Kelleher that is the grateful recipient. And William Osula is stripped and ready for action here. He's been having a pretty in-depth chat with Eddie Howe for the last few minutes, so I would expect his introduction imminently. Trippier almost undersold Thiago with that ball back into his own half, but manages to read it just in front of Igor Thiago. Gimarai takes over inside the centre circle again. Just tries that raking ball over the top. Van der Berg is sharp to it in front of Elanga. And then Thiago gives away a foul on halfway. Botman certainly be feeling that one in the morning. He's a big fella, Igor Thiago. No lasting damage done though for Newcastle's goal scorer Botman. Gimarai on the half turn. Manages to bounce off Jensen on the halfway line. The two captains there, head to head. Ball in from the right hand side by Tonali, and there is a shout for handball there. And Christophe Ayer immediately has a look at the referee as that ball is span into the Brentford penalty area. He's immediately claiming it catches him in the stomach. It's an awkward cross from Sandro Tonali. But the question here is, does it catch Christophe Ayer on the arm before it hits Harvey Barnes on the arm? The decision has gone against the Newcastle man. The Magpies players are claiming that Ayer should be looked at first. And not for the first time this evening. They are left somewhat frustrated. And Newcastle are going to make that change with 25 to play, and it's a rather irritated Johan Vissa that makes his way off in place of William Osula. Not been his night against his old team, and he'll have to watch on from the sidelines here as his new team try and avoid back-to-back defeats against this new look Brentford. Here's Lewis Hall, forward from left back. Just tries to roll that one in the channel for Osula to chase. Ayer gets across and clears away for a throw-in. Deep inside Brentford territory, Lewis Hall will quickly sprint down to take. Tossed in for Gimarai, midway inside Brentford's half of the field. Here's Sven Botman. Chow. Trippier, everybody but Nick Pope pushed into the Brentford half of the field. Elanga just tries to spin in field, but short on options, has to go back for Botman and then to Hall. Nathan Collins is one of those players being spoken to by Keith Andrews, so we could see the Brentford captain introduced for the final 20 minutes or so. Keep an eye on that one. Here's Botman once more over the halfway line for Newcastle. Lewis Hall himself and Kieran Trippier have pushed high and wide on both sides of the field to try and just drag Brentford across and commit players in the wrong areas. Here is Hall again beyond the 18-yard line for Newcastle. Fronted up by Yarmaluk, then Lewis Potter. Gimarai to Malik Thiaw. We thought about the blaster there from distance, and he will go for it. Oof. And that is drawn a superb save from Queven Kelleher. He initially had the little knee jerk there, Malik Thiaw. And as Thiago doesn't get close to him, he really pings that one across Kelleher's goal. Republic of Ireland international has to get across and throw up a hand at that one. Turned behind for a corner. And that's his biggest involvement in this second half. Caoimhín Kelleher. Corner into the far post. Headed down, but headed behind by Botman. A similar position from where he headed Newcastle in front there. The number 4 just peeling away at the back of the 6-yard box. He's slipping as he makes contact, and Kelleher's able to wave that one behind. And that is a fantastic save from Malik Thiago. On first viewing, it just looked as if he throws up a hand, but it's real agility from the Irishman to get there and make an important save for his team as Newcastle start to ramp up the pressure. Throw in for Newcastle, toss back to the halfway line by Trippier for Thiago. Here's Botman inside the centre circle. Brentford are starting to look a little bit leggy here. That change for Henderson, with Yanelt coming on, is probably just the start of a few alterations for Andrews. Elanga can't quite squeeze in that cross and will eventually just dribble into the grasp of Caoimhín Kelleher. Bit of a skewed clearance from him, and Hall is caught on the halfway line by Igor Thiago. There's going to be a card here for Brentford's number 9. He just put his arm into the back of Lewis Hall, and I think that caution is more based on accumulative fouls against him so far tonight. Newcastle have got themselves a free kick just over the halfway line, which try to use to good effect. Igor Thiago is really mixing it back there. He's gone in on defensive duty and he's absolutely giving it to Malik Thiago. Referee here, Andy Madley, stepping in just to try and quell the situation. And played short for Tonali. Floated up right onto the edge of that penalty area, headed away by Vandenberg. Back only as far as Tonali inside the centre circle. 20 minutes here for Brentford just to manage this game. 20 minutes for Newcastle to try and force a rally. Thiago gets the clearance away on the edge of his own penalty area. Back in there defending alongside Ouattara and Keane Lewis-Potter, who's effectively been redeployed as a right wing back to give a bit more protection in front of Michael Kayode. He does really well there as Lewis Hall threatens to skip past him and Kayode doubles up. And Brentford excellent there as Newcastle threaten to barge past them on the transition. Here's Barnes, wins out on the halfway line, pops it in field for Nick Voltemade. Lovely change of feet for Voltemade. He can't quite get the ball off for Elanga. Brentford back in numbers once more. Lewis Potter is tangling with Lewis Hall once more, and he's managed to get away over the halfway line. He tries to ping that cross field for Matthias Jensen. Trippier back on duty, who will see that home for Nick Pope. Brentford here just trying to settle themselves and quell those waves of Newcastle pressure. It's all set up to be a very, very tight final 18 minutes. I can just quickly offer a quick reminder of the Premier League offerings on Flashscore tomorrow. We've got a 2 PM start at the Amex Stadium, Brighton against Crystal Palace. And then 4:30, the big one from Anfield, Liverpool taking on Manchester City. City, of course, looking to close that title gap in behind Arsenal. 3-0 win for Mikel Arteta at home to Sunderland today. Puts them 9 points clear of Pep Guardiola's second place chasers. Liverpool down in 6th at the moment. Defeat for them will further jeopardise their chances of a Champions League place. And Newcastle again trying to build forward down the right hand side. Trippier slips in. Elanga steps away from a challenge, tries to get a shot off, but he's immediately blocked off by 2 Brentford players. And now Ouattara has space to race away down the left hand side, needs support, has it from Thiago through the middle, tries to go it alone there, Dango Ouattara. Thiago is getting up at a rate of knots through the middle of the pitch. I don't think Ouattara got his head up in time to spot that run that was emerging. And fires it over the top of Nick Pope's goal. It's actually 19-year-old Romel Donovan that's being readied by Keith Andrews. And that decision has gone in favour of Brentford because Ouattara's burst forward not in vain. Takes a little nick off the recovering Kieran Trippier, so they will have themselves a corner. And Donovan's entrance will be delayed. Floated in by Jensen, headed away at the near post by Sven Botman. Coyote will clamber over the top of Elanga to try and nod it forward, but it's won on the turnover by Newcastle, and they'll pour forward here. Space for Elanga away down the left hand side, and just flashes it across Kelleher's goal. And Gimarai and Osula have thrown themselves at that in front of Kelleher. And there's a real mess inside the Brentford 6-yard box. Lovely layoff here from Osula as Newcastle broke forward. Elanga goes first time across the 6-yard line. And it's Michael Coyote who slips as he's charging back in there. Gimarai is claiming that he was pushed to the ground by Coyote as he tried to get on the end of that ball. Osula's ended up off the pitch as he slid beyond Quevian Kelleher's near post. And Gimarai has stayed down here in pain. The Newcastle medics will race on to check on their captain. And this will be checked by VAR. Andy Madley has received the word from John Brooks, so as Gimarai receives his treatment, Madley is heading over to the pitchside monitor. And this is a massive decision in the context of this game. And Michael Coyote is absolutely racing back in there to try and deal with Anthony Elanga's ball across the face of the goal. And he does put an arm across on Bruno Gimarai. But is that sufficient enough contact to take him down? Based on the review here, I think this could be awarded as a spot kick. He certainly makes contact with Gimarai. He doesn't get anywhere near the ball. There's a question mark about whether it's intentional or not, but as he stumbles, he certainly drives Gimarai to the ground. And in my humble opinion, that's a penalty. Gimarais' forward momentum might have been taking him down anyway, but Coyote certainly catches him through the back. As we await the decision from Andy Madley. We've already seen one penalty given today after a VAR review. Jacob Murphy's handball and the spot kick slotted home comfortably by Igor Thiago. Andy Madley here has awarded the penalty. Michael Coyote pleading his case to the referee. and saying that he wasn't able to stop in time. It was simply just going too fast in order to pull back. But the decision has been made. And the big call here now for Newcastle is who takes this. A regular taker, Anthony Gordon, not involved. 6 from 6 for the former Everton player. Nick Voltamade and Bruno Gimarai have both scored the penalties they've had this season, 1 each. And Gimarai has passed responsibility here to Nick Voltamade. And this is a huge moment for the Germany international. Hasn't scored a Premier League goal since the 2-2 home draw here with Chelsea back on the 20th of December. But he has been given responsibility here. And faces... Oh, no, actually they've changed it. Voltamade was just holding on to the ball for Bruno Gimarai. He's now passed the ball back to his captain, who steps forward. So, a little bit of theatre here at St James's Park. Queven Kelleher has saved 2 of the 4 Premier League penalties he's faced as a Brentford goalkeeper. Denied Cole Palmer and Zian Fleming. Enzo Lafille and Jorgen Strand Larsen have beaten him. But with 12 minutes to go here at St James's Park, it's the captain, Gimarai, against Queven Kelleher. As Andy Madley steps aside. He's just telling Michael Chiodi to step back out of the penalty area as he waits for Gimarai to prepare for this one. Deep breath from the Newcastle captain. Andy Madley blows his whistle. So it is all on this from Bruno Gimarai. Another delay here. Well, Gimarai will now step up. And he slots it home. Cool, calm and collected from the captain. Just like Igor Thiago waits for the goalkeeper to dive. Kelleher guesses the wrong way this time. Stoops to his right. And Gimarai strokes it into the bottom corner. And Newcastle are back level. A huge moment has gone in favour of the home side here. Do we have time for yet more late drama at St James's Park? It's been a superb watch, certainly from a neutral perspective. We've had goals, we've had incidents. What more can we pack into this final 8 minutes on a wild Saturday night on Tyneside? Coyote is forced to race all the way back to the byline with Harvey Barnes. And he's caught by Barnes there. It'll be a free kick for Brentford. Barely a flicker from Keith Andrews as he finally gets the chance to make that substitution. It is the teenager Romel Donovan on for his 2nd Premier League appearance. Replaces Keane Lewis Potter. Kelleher to the halfway line. Voltamade wins the header. Here is Romel Donovan. The first involvement though as he tries to pass that back to Michael Chiodi. It's cut out by Harvey Barnes. Osula takes over now. Trying to work himself a crossing angle in off that left-hand side, but runs into trouble, and Donovan will win himself a throw-in. No, he won't. Decision goes against the Brentford teenager. Lewis Hall quickly tosses that one in. Donovan goes in on Tonali, who's had a swipe at him there. Referee just tells both players to calm down. Donovan's had a tough couple of minutes since coming on. Yanelt does well there, pinches possession away from Lewis Hall. Chance for Brentford to break here. They've got a 4-on-4. Jensen on the left-hand side, rolled forward for Ouattara. Can he get the ball back across goal? It's turned behind for a corner by Lewis Hall. No, it's not. Nick Pope gets there just ahead of him. He takes out his own man there, Nick Pope, as he does eventually manage to prevent the corner. Lewis Hall did brilliantly to sprint back and recover from his mistake. And then Pope completes the job to prevent another corner being loaded into Newcastle's penalty area. Brentford back in possession, though, on the halfway line. Here's Vitaly Yanelt. Rico Henry. 5 minutes of normal time to go. Newcastle 2, Brentford 2. Sven Botman getting the ball rolling for the Magpies. Brentford in front at the break, though, thanks to Yanelt and Igor Thiago from the penalty spot. But it's another spot kick that's produced a final chapter here. Bruno Gimarai dragging the Magpies back level. Will we have a final twist or two before the end, though? Both of these teams perfectly capable of it. I do think Keith Andrews will go to his bench again before the final whistle. We mentioned how Brentford have battled really hard tonight. Long ball forward, knocked down by Thiago. Jensen finds it and lays it off, and it's been turned home by Brentford. Dango Ouattara, and Brentford are back in front. What a turnaround here for Brentford! And a first Premier League goal as a Brentford player for Dango Ouattara. I beg your pardon, a fifth Premier League goal of the season for Dango Ouattara. A misglance at my notes there. There's a long ball just fizzed downfield. Thiago goes up with Sven Botman. It's nodded down for Jensen. And a first time ball in behind Kieran Trippier. And Dango Ouattara still has plenty to do here. And he goes back across goal, across Nick Pope. And that is not one the Newcastle goalkeeper will want to see again. Apologies to Dango Ouattara, that is Premier League goal number 5 for him this season. But it squirms under the legs of Nick Pope. And Brentford are back in front, my. 87 minutes on the clock. And Gimarai's equaliser is cancelled out, just a simple ball downfield. That tussle that we've seen so many times tonight between Thiago and Sven Botman. But brilliant instinctive play from Matthias Jensen just to sweep it first time into Dango Ouattara. And Jensen is going to be replaced here for the final couple of minutes. He's clapped off by his manager. Mikael Damsgaard is on. Newcastle are going to make a couple of changes, their final 2 alterations of the night. Tonali and Trippier off. Dan Burn and Jacob Ramsey on. So we've had a final twist in the tail from Brentford. What do Newcastle have to show? What a game this has been. 5 goals. Brentford pushing hard for European qualification. They're not letting it lie. Back up to 7th as it stands, level with Liverpool. Here's Ilanga. Jacob Ramsey's first involvement just in off that right-hand side, midway in the Brentford half of the field. Spun forward here for Harvey Barnes, who'll try and get Donovan one-on-one, floated in, good header away from Christophe Ayer. Been a real steady night for Brentford's 2 centre-halves without Nathan Collins. Ayer and Van der Berg back there against Voltemade, Visser, Osula. handled that threat. Penalty, just a moment of chaos as Coyote tangled with Gimarai, and then the Brazilian stepping up to slot past Queven Kelleher. The final 90 seconds of the 90 minutes. Newcastle 2, Brentford 3. Here's Dan Burn. He's going to go straight up front, I'd imagine. Try and ruffle a few Brentford feathers. Work to the edge of the penalty area by Gimarai to Elanga. Lewis Hall gets it onto his right foot, blocked by his own man. Catches Asula on the back as he tries to fire it through a crowd of bodies. Brentford will clear away. Donovan has space to get over the halfway line. Needs support in that channel. Damsgaard goes ahead. Just wanted to hold on to the ball here. Donovan. And eventually manages to get a chance to curl one goalwards as Newcastle defence just backed off and backed off. Easily gathered though by Nick Pope. Possession then given away on the halfway line. Tenale sloppy, and Coyote will come forward. He's been caught. Bruno Gimarai tired there, charging back into his own defensive third. And sweeps out Michael Coyote. Roles reverse from the penalty decision, of course, after Coyote bundled him over. This is exactly where Brentford will want to be. 30 yards from Nick Pope's goal, just off to the right-hand side. Damsgaard and Yanelt stand over. Brentford minutes away from a 4th Premier League win in their last 6. But they are going to have to sit through 9 minutes of additional time. As that ball from Damsgaard just pings wide of Nick Pope's goal. So it won't just be a few minutes, it'll be 9 long minutes. Keith Andrews rolling his eyes there on the touchline as he tries to pack this game down. There's going to be a card here for Brentford. Yanelt storming back onto the halfway line there, just gets a handful of Jacob Ramsey's shirt. Clear card for the German. He's taken the armband after Jensen went off. And Nick Pope will order all of his outfield players forward for this one. Goes long. It's flicked on towards Dan Burn by Sven Botman. Cleared away though by Brentford, back into Newcastle territory. Gimarai is the last man back in front of Pope. He goes long this time. Botman has stayed forward alongside Dan Burn. That's well dealt with though by Brentford. Only as far as Dan Burn will gallop over the halfway line. Rolled forward for Asula. Coyote in his back pocket though. Now Gimarai takes over. Jacob Ramsey just trying to pivot away from that challenge put on him by Jarmaluk. Gimarai has dropped very, very deep here. He's happy to stay as the Newcastle quarterback in the final minutes. Elanga works it with Lewis Hall. He's moved over permanently to that right-hand side and he's been fouled. Free kick quickly taken, just tries to roll it in for Elanga across the face of goal. And Asula gets in the way of his own man again. Malik Thiago tries to poke that on target. And credit here to Lewis Hall's quick thinking. Elanga quick off the mark as well. Just tries to feed that across the 6-yard box, and Thiago sliding in with Michael Coyote. Can't quite steer it in front of Queven Kelleher. Anxiety on the face of Eddie Howe. 3 minutes of this additional 9 played. Brentford are digging in here, fighting for every inch. Won't really change to Newcastle's league position if they lose tonight. They'll stay 12th. We'll end 6 points behind Brentford, and the current European equation means that 7th is the final European spot. That, of course, could stretch to 8th, depending on a few variables between now and the end of the campaign, but that is the direction of things at the moment. Lewis Hall furious there. He's claiming he was fouled as Brentford raced over the halfway line. He was actually sandwiched in between two Brentford players, but the decision has not gone in his favour this time. He's even more irked by the fact that as Brentford got forward, they've now won themselves a free kick. Smack bang in the middle of Newcastle's half of the field. Yanelt lifted up to the edge of Newcastle's penalty area, headed away by Byrne. Yarmaluk will head for the corner here, wins a throw-in off Dan Byrne. Kayode will come across to take here. Level with the penalty spot in the Newcastle penalty area here. Gimarai is screaming at the officials over how long Kayode is allowed to take to come across for this one. Goes near post with it, headed away by Voltemade. That eventually will get pulled back for a free kick. Christophe Ayer, who'd gone forward, penalised for holding inside the 6-yard box. He played 6 of the 9 originally indicated by the 4th official, Rob Jones. Voltemade has now gone down inside the centre circle. He's not being given any sympathy by Andy Madley or his teammates, to be fair. They want to get on with it. Donovan now has been switched over to the left-hand side, tries to race away from Lewis Hall. He's been dragged down by Lewis Hall, who's becoming increasingly irked by decisions that are going against him. Just get his arms around Romel Donovan there. And that's going to be a booking for Lewis Hall as well. Frustration boiling over for the former Chelsea man. He's getting wound up here by Igor Thiago as Brentford wait for the free kick to be delivered into the penalty area. He's been happy to play the pantomime villain this evening, Igor Thiago. He's got his 17th goal of the season, that's all he's interested in. Ball clipped into the penalty, headed back by Dan Byrne, and the final touch comes off a Brentford player. That will be a goal kick for Newcastle. Final couple of minutes here. And what's been a seesaw of a night on Tyneside. Newcastle are appealing for offside there as the turnover is won on halfway. Igor Thiago came back into play. Nothing doing for now. Damsgaard with space to dart away down the right-hand side and eat up a few more valuable seconds. Yarmaluk will take over here and just put his studs on the ball. Dan Byrne gets a toe in though. Can Botman prevent the corner? Yes, he can. Throw in for Newcastle. Back in their left-back position once more. Byrne hurls it long. Won back though by Dango Ouattara. Thiago takes it on the turn on the edge of the box. Can he find Damsgaard? Yes, he can. Damsgaard just can't quite get a shot off, but he will protect the ball for Brentford and manages to work it back here for Vitaly Yanelt. Pinged there against Harvey Barnes, but it's eventually cleared away for Newcastle, and Van der Berg will see it all the way home for Caoimhin Kelleher. The final minute of that 9 added on, and it's Hall again. That's his 3rd foul in a row, and he's allowed himself to get pinned over on that far side by Romel Donovan. Keith Andrews, barely a show of emotion on his face, just wants his team to stay calm, ease themselves over the line. Changing sides for Donovan has been a really, really important one.